Hey guys, sorry that I am not going to be there today. Um, we are going to finish up the last two PowerPoint slides by video. They're fairly short, so there shouldn't be any problem there. So I'll do a real quick overview of the overlooked scientists. So we've got Solomon Carter Fuller, who is a psychiatrist who made huge advances in the study of Alzheimer's disease. He was one of the first to report the symptoms of the disease. And then after people died, he looked at their brains and found that there were brain plaques, which is a really important indicator of the disease. His contributions to the field were so important that the Boston Medical Center named their mental health center after him. Next, we have an oncologist named Jane Cook Wright. She developed some very important chemo drugs, some of which are still used today. And she was really important in developing personalized medicine, where instead of everybody just getting exactly the same treatment, she would look at tissue cultures of the cancers and treat them in different ways, basically in petri dishes, and then base how she treated the patient on those results. All right, so digestive system diversity is our first of two lectures. So we won't do the LC question online, but I want you to think about which animals you think has the most complex alimentary canal of those listed. And I'm actually not going to tell you the answer yet. You will figure it out as we go along. So here are carnivores, first of all. They have a pretty simple and short, that's the blank, alimentary canal because meat is quite easy to digest. They typically don't have a cecum, or it's a very small cecum. Hunters have very expandable stomachs so that they can gorge on a meal and then not eat for quite a long time. So here's an example. These two lions killed a baby elephant, and you can see the female lion is currently gorging herself. She's been eating for hours, and you can see that her belly is pretty big. This is an African wild dog puppy, and they don't usually look like they have swallowed a basketball. They usually look like a dog normally does. But he had been gorging on kudu that the adults in the pack had killed, and so he was very, very, very full. All right, ruminant herbivores. These kinds of animals have continuously growing teeth, and importantly, they have a four-chambered stomach. This is what makes them ruminants. They have what is called a rumen. The stomach houses microbes that can do a fermentation process. Remember that fermentation is basically energy production without oxygen. So they ferment fiber into digestible compounds that the herbivores can then actually ingest and use. The cecum is somewhat large so that more fiber digestion can occur, but as we'll see in a moment, it's usually not as large as in non-ruminant herbivores. And these are mid-sized animals. You don't get any tiny things. You don't have, mice or gerbils that are going to be ruminants. And about the biggest you're going to get is giraffes. So hippos, rhinos, elephants are not going to be ruminant herbivores. This picture down here of the four-chambered stomach, you don't need to know how it works. It's fairly complicated. I just wanted to give you an example so you could see what the chambers look like. Okay, so LC question. Ruminants have continuously growing teeth, unlike typical carnivores. So what is it about their diet that necessitates tooth growth? If you want to think about that for a second and write down an answer, you can hit the pause button. So the answer is that ruminant herbivores tend to eat a lot of grass. Grass is quite tough. It's got a lot of cellulose in it, and a lot of grass also has silica in it, which is basically part of sand. So it's a little bit like eating sandpaper. So they need to have teeth that can grow back from being worn down all the time. Non-ruminant herbivores, they have what would be considered a normal stomach with just one chamber, kind of like ours. These are called hindgut fermenters because they do fermentation. Their bacteria do fermentation in them, but they do not do it in the stomach. They do it further back in the cecum. So they have a long cecum with fermenting bacteria. In rabbits and some rodents, get ready to be grossed out, cellulose digestion can also occur in the large intestine. However, they cannot absorb the cellulose or the products of cellulose digestion in their large intestine, and so therefore any feces that has only been through them one time has to be eaten. These animals have to eat the feces after the first pass through in order to survive and be healthy. And this is called coprophagy or cecotrophy. And feces that have only gone through one time are called cecotropes. So they can actually tell the difference between whether the poop has gone through one time or the second time, and they'll only eat the cecotropes. Okay, so this is just to see if you remember what we just talked about. Ruminants ferment cellulose in the blank, and non-ruminant herbivores ferment in the blank. So pause the video and see if you can answer the question. And ruminants ferment cellulose in the stomach. Non-ruminants ferment it in the cecum. All right, omnivores. These basically have an alimentary canal that's in between carnivores and herbivores because their diet is in between the two. So this includes us. You can see down here in this picture, humans are along with these other omnivores. So typically we don't get nutrients, all omnivores don't get nutrients from cellulose because our intestines or stomachs don't have the right kind of microbes to break it down. So typically these animals will eat plant matter that is fairly low in cellulose. So that would be fruit, flowers, soft new leaves, and stems. Omnivores have a simple stomach. They have medium-length intestines, most of them. You can see right here the black bear has very long intestines. They eat lots and lots of plant matter. So they need a good bit of intestine to be able to break it down and bring it in. And they typically have an intermediate size cecum. If you remember when we looked at the cecum in humans, it's just this little pouch right here, not very big. In the pig, it's a little bit longer, but still not so huge. All right, last question. Bears are in the taxa Carnivora. This means that they evolved along with other carnivores. So that's their evolutionary history is as a carnivore. However, most bears are omnivorous. Polar bears are one of the exceptions where they're pretty much completely carnivores, and giant pandas are basically herbivores. So which bear do you think gets the least nutrition out of its diet? So the polar bear is extremely efficient in getting nutrition out of its diet. It will extract pretty well every calorie it can, especially out of seal blubber. Black bears and grizzly bears are somewhat efficient, not as efficient as polar bears, but still relatively so. Giant pandas are very inefficient at getting the calories out of their food. That's why they have to basically sit around and do nothing all day and just eat and eat and eat and sleep. So they are the least efficient of all of these at getting calories out of their food. All right, that is the end of this lesson. And you can go ahead and watch the next one right after this.